There are a few conflicts of interest that are set up which prevent us from moving forward societally. The first conflict of interest has to do with our healthcare industry. These are for-profit entities which are, we're talking about insurance, and we're talking about medical facilities and hospitals, and we're talking about companies that sell drugs, pharmaceutical companies. We're talking about massive, massive industries which are set up to provide the shareholder and the stakeholders in those companies with a profit. When that is set up and the need for profit is put up against the value and the good that those companies can do for human beings, you have a natural conflict of interest, which is going to create a lot of problems. That is not a conspiracy theory. I think anybody could understand what I'm saying. So if you are a pharmaceutical company and the main thing you need to do is to create profit, it's going to influence the decisions you make, and those decisions are not always going to be made in name of the common good, or good for people. Well, this is true in the treatment industry as well. And the treatment industry and the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry are connected with each other, directly connected. How does that work? Well, treatment center is very expensive. In order for someone to be able to afford $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a month, they're either going to be wealthy, or their family will be a wealthy family, or they have to have insurance. So Brian, what is on your heart and mind?
Wow. So first of all, just a shout out to the universe for putting me here, and just a wow experience of my fellow guests here, and the questions and the inquiry and the feedbacks. It's like being in a wonderful quartet, and you get to listen to all the other soloists, and experience the wonder and amazement of being with wonderful people doing wonderful things together. It's just great. So I'm going to shout out first, and then so like any true addict, I have like 6 questions, but it's really one question, and then there's some sub-contextualized questions if you need them, but I don't think you will. I've been blessed in my life, in this lifetime, to have had several wonderful and amazing experiences with you in presence, Tommy, and I'm grateful and honored to be here again. One of these impactful, insightful illuminations of you came about as you were discussing the state of addiction and recovery in America at one point, okay? And your clearly impassioned heart was felt. And I expect that passion continues to glow. So I'm wondering if you might express your views from the ongoing maturation of your own recovery and the continuing deepening of experience from your own life working at the intersection of yoga and addiction recovery, and the continuing growth and evolvement of the Recovery 2.0 community. I wonder if you've developed what the development of your perspective is on this question specifically. Is broad-based, inclusive, effective, sustained addiction recovery available, accessible, and/or achievable in America today?
Thank you so much, Brian, for this question. I met my life teacher, Guru Prem, in the year 2003, and we discussed yoga. He was a yoga teacher, is a yoga teacher, and we discussed recovery. He knew that I was a person in long-term recovery and that I had really struggled with drugs and alcohol in my life. And when I met him, I was 12 years sober. He said from the very beginning, when he heard about Recovery 2.0 and he's worked with me on it, I've told many people, first of all, I dedicated my book to him because without his teachings, there would be no Recovery 2.0. And all of this is essentially coming out of the fountain of his wisdom and love. So I'll start with that. He always said from the beginning, someone has to find a way to provide excellent, reputable, effective treatment to people who can't afford it. That was the first thing that he sort of charged me with. And he understood that I wasn't getting into the primary treatment business, that I wasn't creating a recovery center. I wasn't creating a drug and alcohol treatment center. Rather, I was essentially being a yoga teacher and providing the powerful tools and practices of yoga and meditation, healthy diet, breath work, and immersion in nature. I was providing those as supplements to or elements as part of a person's recovery, particularly to help a person thrive in their life. So he wasn't saying you have to solve this problem for the United States of America and create a treatment modality that works for everybody. But he was saying there are some great treatment centers in the world, but they just happen to be $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 a month. And that system and that problem of being able to make good treatment accessible to people who can't afford it has not been solved. We haven't done that. We haven't done that yet. So there is just on the purely financial level, we haven't figured out a way to help people who are not people of economic means. We haven't helped them to find a way to recover at the societal level. Having said that, there is something called the 12 Steps, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and all the other anonymous programs, which are free. There's no financial barrier to entry there. And so one would ask, first, upon hearing this, somebody would say, wow, how exciting. That's an amazing thing. Are there millions of people there? Yes. Actually, there are millions of people that attend all of these different programs. And then someone would say, well, what's the problem? And the problem is that the results that one would hope for societally aren't coming out of those programs. Even though some people are having great experiences and amazing transformations on the greater level of society, we haven't figured it out. The question, the philosophical question of, is this possible to figure out? Maybe I'll address that at the end. I think any question you ask in the universe, there has to be an answer to. So I do believe there has to be a way, even if we haven't figured it out yet as a society. Back to Recovery 2.0. So what I thought, based on what Guru Prem, my teacher, was saying was, well, we'll have to create a lot of things that are free, and we'll have to create a lot of things that can be supportive to 12-step programs, and we'll have to create things that are accessible, even if they have a cost to them, that they're accessible and low cost financially. So we've done that well. I was going to say to the best of our ability, but we've provided so many services and so many things that are accessible by anybody, which is also good news. And yet, millions and millions of people are not necessarily adopting yoga, breath work, meditation, healthy diet, and lifestyle into their recovery, because there is a lifestyle barrier to entry there, which is that many people don't want to do that and are not interested or inspired by that. So it's not just about what's being presented as an opportunity, but it's also about what could be received. Now, another lesson that Guru Prem gave me was, it's not their job to understand you. It's your job to make yourself understood, which means as a teacher and as a presenter of something, I have to try to reach somebody inspirationally to understand what's here, so that maybe I could inspire them into trying some of these things, and that good things would result. So those are some of the first initial sort of thoughts about this inquiry about treatment being available in the US. You have a free version of treatment. It absolutely works if somebody will dedicate themselves to the 12-step work and the 12-step program, and they get with a good meeting, and they get with good people, and they get with a good sponsor, and they do the work. If all of those things happen, I've seen the most extraordinary transformations and healings take place. Of course, that's a lot of ifs. Once again, is a person willing to adopt a new way of seeing and thinking? It brings up so many philosophical questions about the readiness of a student and the appearance of a teacher or teachings at the right moment. To go a level deeper on this, there are a few things, and this is where you're going to hear my passion come out. There are a few conflicts of interest that are set up which prevent us from moving forward societally. The first conflict of interest has to do with our healthcare industry. These are for-profit entities which are, we're talking about insurance, and we're talking about medical facilities and hospitals, and we're talking about companies that sell drugs, pharmaceutical companies. We're talking about massive, massive industries which are set up to provide the shareholder and the stakeholders in those companies with a profit. When that is set up and the need for profit is put up against the value and the good that those companies can do for human beings, you have a natural conflict of interest, which is going to create a lot of problems. That is not a conspiracy theory. I think anybody could understand what I'm saying. So if you are a pharmaceutical company and the main thing you need to do is to create profit, it's going to influence the decisions you make, and those decisions are not always going to be made in name of the common good or good for people. Well, this is true in the treatment industry as well. And the treatment industry and the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry are connected with each other, directly connected. How does that work? Well, treatment center is very expensive. In order for someone to be able to afford $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a month, they're either going to be wealthy, or their family will be a wealthy family, or they have to have insurance. If they don't have great insurance, then they will be extremely limited to which treatment centers they can go to. And of course, the better clinical staffs exist at the treatment centers that cost quite a bit of money. So when you go to a treatment center, the insurance company might pay for it. Well, the insurance company has doctors that monitor the cases of the people that they're paying for. So those doctors go out and they say to the treatment center, how's this client doing in your treatment center? Well, they're doing well. I noticed that client has decided not to take any pharmaceutical drugs that you're offering them. And the treatment center might say, yes, that person has opted not to take any of the drugs that we are offering to support them in their recovery. And the doctor goes back to the insurance company and reports to the insurance company, this particular patient apparently doesn't need any pharmaceutical support for their recovery. And then the pharmaceutical company will conclude, oh, well, that person shouldn't be in treatment. They can be handled at a lesser level of care. And so they kick the person out of treatment. This is not made up. Anybody can talk to anybody in the treatment industry and can understand this is what's going on. I consider that a conflict of interest, a brutal, a deadly conflict of interest. These conflicts of interest have to be worked out. And people make millions and in some cases billions of dollars in the treatment industry. And so if you're making that kind of money, and the way you do that is you build your treatment center with more and more and more and more beds. The more beds you have, the more beds you can fill. Hey, at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a pop per month, if you have 100 beds, you do the math. There's an unbelievable opportunity for profit. But what we know, everybody knows this, as you grow and grow and grow and grow, as you try to scale an intimate business that's trying to help a few clients, but you try to scale that to hundreds of clients, the quality of your offering goes down. It's hard to find amazing clinical staff or to train clinical staff to deal with more and more and more people. So the bigger that these places get, the quality of the offering goes down. I've seen this in countless cases. So what's the answer here? If we're going to say that we need to make Alcoholics Anonymous and 12-step programs more accessible to people, then somehow at the national level, we're going to have to explain to people what they are, what's there, and what's not there. In terms of treatment, we're going to have to make these conflicts of interest have to go away. There simply cannot be, philosophically, a for-profit treatment model that doesn't also include accessibility to people who wouldn't be able to afford treatment there. We have to expand what people understand about addiction, what they understand about recovery. We have to understand that we're dealing with mental health, complex mental health issues, not just substance use disorder, but also co-occurring conditions, depression, anxiety, stress, suicidal ideation, all the rest of it. And unfortunately, from my opinion, another layer of difficulty and challenge is that because of the conflicts of interest that I've mentioned between treatment centers and clients, insurance companies and treatment centers, pharmaceutical companies, treatment centers, and insurance companies, these conflicts of interest have created a situation where we've now decided one of the main ways we're going to treat addiction in treatment is with drugs, long term. So if you're a heroin addict or an alcoholic and you're coming into treatment, it's very likely that you're going to be put on drugs to deal with the opiate addiction. And I don't mean put on drugs for a week or two. I mean, you'll leave that facility and you will likely be addicted to another form of opiate, which it's been decided that other form of opiate is less dangerous and it can be administered, it can be protected. And it's the same thing as the methadone argument. And the Suboxone is the new version of that. There's methadone. And as far as I'm concerned, from the perspective of health and wellness, from the perspective of what's possible, our overemphasis on medication is creating more problems than it's solving. It's not black and white, but I would say that the methadone experiment, which has been around since the 60s, maybe 60s for sure, in my opinion, I'm going to use this word, and this is going to piss off a lot of harm reduction people, but I'm just going to say the methadone experiment was a dismal failure. It has kept more people stuck, and what a painful thing to come off of for those. And I know many, many, many people who are lifelong opiate addicts who ended up on methadone, and that was sort of where they ended up, and it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty at all. So I go head to head, unfortunately, with harm reductionists, and I'm not against harm reduction in many of its forms, but in some of its forms, I just have to say, I'm sorry. This is not how I would want a human being to end up. And since I'm a yogi and I've seen the efficacy of the work of yoga and breath work and meditation, I'm working my butt off trying to get those things out into the world in a bigger way for people to understand, yeah, I'm not just going to bring a yoga teacher into my treatment center once a week and claim we've got yoga. No, we're going to base our treatment on the principles and practices of yoga and really watch people heal and come back to a natural balance, which I think is the whole point of this body and this mind, is that there is a way to restore natural harmony and balance to it, but not if we continue to keep ourselves on drugs long term. So I advocate for these natural methods of returning to balance and healing. And I guess to finally answer the question straight up, of course there's a way to solve these problems. It's complex, it's difficult, it's going to take a lot of people coming together. I think it takes a deeper understanding of what addiction is and what recovery is. And as long as we stay mired in the industrial complexes of the American Medical Association and the pharmaceutical injury. I use that word specifically. I don't want to even call it an industry. The pharmaceutical injury and, oh God, and the treatment center business is all caught up in there. It makes it very hard to really, really get down to the nitty gritty of helping people to heal and move forward. And despite all that, I'm unbelievably hopeful because I've decided to be. And I believe that we can get there. And I think it takes people like you, Brian, who are out there teaching all the time, and all of us in this circle. And I think we have to wake up to different people will need different things at different times. Some people will need medication. I'm not anti-medication. Some people will need that, but far fewer. And it should not be the basis of our treatment as I feel it is today. So we've got some hurdles and some problems in terms of philosophical and major structural issues. But at the end of the day, it's about the individual. It's about each of us healing. And I'm shouting from the rooftops, please, 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 please try the things that I'm suggesting and that countless other people have brought into their life to bring about healing from addiction and to help them thrive in life. So, Brian, have I depressed you? I hope not.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, as always, you inspire me, and I appreciate that. So thank you for the response and for the thoughts. And if you could tagline that, because that's what we need, part of what we need, right, in our consumer and receptive culture. With we just need a slogan or a meme, right? And I love that expression of if there's a question, then there's an answer. So in my recovery, the way it was presented to me was, if you don't like the answers you're getting, ask different questions. And so, I think the answer that you gave is essentially that, as a society, as a culture, as a community, as a group of human beings coexisting on a planet, however you want to parse us up into whatever way you want to parse us up into groups to try to divide us, we just need to ask different questions. And so, as always, I will center it. Well, where's your source and what's your intention? And thank you so much for allowing me to share a little space again and to be here. It's just an honor and a privilege to be with you. As always, I miss you, my friend. We need to be together. We do.
Brian, thank you for this inquiry. I miss you too. Where's your source? What's your intention? Yes? Okay. I love that so much. And, yeah, I can't help but feel in this moment simultaneous, the tremendous hope and the tremendous challenge of this moment. And I want to believe, and I choose to, that asking better questions and different questions is going to help us. And working together, I don't necessarily feel. Let me put this another way. I'll end with this. I believe in the power of the individual. I believe in the power of wise counsel. I believe in the power of yoga, meaning that practice which leads us towards a state of union and unity. I believe it's very important that we work together as individuals outside of the complexes that I mentioned in addressing this inquiry. I've always been on the outside. I've not been a corporate person. I've not been I'm not waiting for the government to come save me type person. So I feel that if we can empower each other, and by empowerment, this means with wisdom and with love and with connection, also with resources, human, financial, and otherwise, then I think we can really have a much bigger impact. And that's the greater hope and the greater vision of Recovery 2.0, is that we could have a major impact for whomever would be willing to listen. And that's my hope and my dream, that we can impact and affect this conversation and move the possibility and opportunity for long-term recovery to greater and greater numbers of people. Love you guys so much. Thank you for your time today and your earnest inquiries. So thank you all so much again, and much love. Speak to you really soon.